it's been a very positive experience to be able to see that these good things are happening.
Actually, you mentioned earlier, thank you for first sharing the stories of the different people you've met with. But based on kind of their stories and how you've got to know them, and kind of what you just told us about how you think they're being stigmatized in the community, have they ever given you a description of what Richmond life is for them, or kind of what it's like to grow up in the south side of Richmond?
Actually, it's really interesting because a lot of the people who come to the center, they all live on the south side. So it is a majority immigrant community that they're coming from. So I think right off the bat, they're sort of isolated from a lot of other Richmond neighborhoods, like the Fan, or like the West End, where they're not meeting a lot of American Richmonders, they're meeting Latino Richmonders, which isn't a negative thing, but I think it can make it harder for them sometimes to feel like a full member of the community when the people who are probably going to criticize them are living in different parts of the city and don't tend to have a lot of interaction with them. So it's pretty segregated in that regard.
What about in terms of opportunities? Have you noticed any disparity of opportunities, or do you think that they'll be able to get back on their feet through this program?
I think it's really hard for a lot of people who come initially to the Sacred Heart Center because the majority of them, like I said, they're learning English. So first of all, they're not qualified for a majority of jobs in America because they don't speak the dominant language here. A lot of them also have never used a computer before, so they take the computer lab classes that I've been volunteering with to figure things out as far as like, okay, I've never had an email account before. How do I use email? Or how do I type something? You know, how do I write a Word document or use Google Calendar? Simple things that most Americans can do. They just have never had the opportunity to learn about, since a lot of people are coming from very different situations than we grew up in. So I think it's not that they don't want to learn, it's that they just have never had the opportunity to. So I think coming here, it's really hard for them, but they're super passionate about learning English, learning how to use a computer, connecting with people from Richmond, or at least Americans who are more used to our lifestyle. So they really are proving themselves every day, but I think initially it can be really hard to, you know, wrap your mind around the fact that you have to start all over from nothing.
No, it's crazy to think about. So what motivated you to want to do this? Something to do with Spanish minor?
Yeah, pretty much I wanted to use a skill that I had to help other people because I wanted the service that I was spending my semester doing to reflect something that I felt passionate about and something that I want to explore more. So a lot of my experiences with like the Spanish language and Spanish people have been primarily in Spain and with people from Spain. So I really wanted to learn sort of the other half of what's going on in different types of Hispanic communities and with different types of Hispanic culture, and you know, what is it like to be an immigrant in the United States. So I wanted to use something that I could do to help others, and I wanted it to be meaningful in the sense of not only do I care about the issue, but I have something to offer people. So through my ability to speak with them, a lot of the English language teachers at the Sacred Heart Center don't actually speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's a big struggle where it's like somebody who's new to the classes, they have a word that they want to say. And since they don't speak any English, you know, it's hard to vocalize, like, this is what I'm trying to figure out. So they have to speak Spanish. And when the teacher doesn't speak Spanish at all, it sort of just results in this like back and forth guessing game that doesn't really get anywhere. So I've been able to facilitate a lot of the things in terms of just translation, and having a common understanding, because I think when you speak a language, especially, a language is sort of a microscope to culture and to identity, and people really tend to align with, you know, the first language you speak that says so much about who you are as a person and what you believe and where you come from or where you might go. So I think that I've been able to empathize a lot more, at least more profoundly, with the immigrants I've been working with because I have that common bond of the Spanish language with them. So.
How would you say that your experience kind of relates to like this overarching topic of justice, or how we can help to make our society more equitable?
I mean, I think that when you get involved in working with marginalized communities or people who tend to be at risk, I know in the fall our SSIR talked a lot about, you know, who are the at-risk populations for basically falling into traps or for getting left behind or for being taken advantage of. And it's people who, you know, don't speak the same language as the people around them, or people who don't have the same educational background as the people around them, people who are new to some place and they don't know what are the social cues and what's expected of me and who can I trust and not trust, because in some countries trust is earned differently or is just automatically given, whereas here there are people who you have to watch out for. So I think that using my experiences from our SSIR class in the fall, pairing that with justice now, I think it showed me a lot about, in terms of justice, you really can't understand a problem until you immerse yourself in it. And likewise, you can't understand a problem if you don't try to. So I think a lot of the problems with justice in terms of immigration is a lot of the people who are making laws regarding immigration have never actually dealt with immigrants before. So they don't know how their policies or their beliefs or their comments are going to shape immigrant life here. So it's really impressed upon me the urgency of getting involved with marginalized communities, working day to day with them, knowing them inside and out, and knowing them as people and not as a demographic, and knowing them as individuals on that personal level. You really can't make positive changes for people if you don't know exactly what they want, and the only way to know what they want is to know them. So I think it's just shown me that in terms of justice, like, we can only move forward if we're really stopping and reflecting on issues we see in the justice system or with our politics or with, in this case, immigration, and really forcing ourselves to come to terms with the absolute reality of the situation in order to be able to do what's right for people.
That's awesome.
So if there's one policy change or just change or cultural shift in society, what do you think would be best for helping these people?
I think the worst thing that Americans do is that when immigrants come here, regardless of if you're legal or illegal or your status is questionable, we tend to just sort of relegate them as second-class citizens and assume that they don't have anything to offer us besides, in the sadly stereotypical instances, maybe yard work or cleaning. So we sort of pigeonhole them as, if you're from this country, then you must be able to do this, or you probably can't do this. So I think the best thing we can do then is to be not just excited about having people wanting to come to our country, but understanding that they're coming for reasons that are greater than we can possibly ever know, and being allies for them and reaching out to them and just sort of embracing them in our community, because when we force them to live amongst themselves and to kind of stay segregated from everyone else, they obviously can't, get to understand American culture and our way of life as well as they should be able to. So I think that we need to change our mindset about immigrants, and the language we use about them, to understand, they're people too. Just because you're from a different country doesn't make you a lesser person or less likely to be able to contribute to society. The center is a really meaningful space that forms a real community and fosters a lot of positive and hardworking people to become more engaged in Richmond, and it really connects them with opportunities. So I think that just changing community dialogue is not the issue. Okay, well, that's some information that I've learned in my time at the Sacred Heart Center. I'm really hoping to return after my semester abroad and get more involved in the English language classes. I've really been honored to volunteer there, and I couldn't have asked for a better experience. I've learned a lot about the Latino community in Richmond, which has been really interesting. Being from New Jersey and going to school in the West End, it's connected me to a new part of the city, and it's definitely carried a lot of what I've learned about in our SSIR in the fall, with classes I've taken in the spring, and just has confirmed a lot of my own beliefs that immigrants are incredible people, and we need more people who want to be their advocates. So, thanks for watching.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us.